Hi, I'm Megan Dorn, Program Director for Valley Beit Midrash, and we are here with Jessica Fishman, who is one of our guest speakers this season. She's out promoting her book, Chutzpah and High Heels, a search for love and identity in the Holy Land.
It's the search. Not
The
just
search.
a.
Oh, we have to be, hey, grammar is important. So, Jessica, tell me, what was the driving force behind you sharing your story?
So I went through this there's a few driving forces. One is, I think, moving to Israel, moving to a different country, trying to find yourself in that different country. I think one in general, that is a really universal story, trying to find out who you are and what your identity is. So it was something that I really wanted to share with the world and share, especially with the Jewish world. And the other driving force, which is probably a bit more of the stronger one, is that I went through this sort of negative experience when it came to the lack of religious pluralism in Israel. And I wanted to really take my story and try to turn it into something positive and try to fight for social change. So that's one of the reasons I really decided to share some of my most private, intimate details, and some were kind of funny, but some were kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm. What was the hardest to share?
I don't know if was one specific thing that was harder to share. I think, though, for me, so the way that I write is I really go back into that exact moment, and to really make it a strong story, you really have to re-experience it again. So some of the parts of that heartbreak, I felt it just as much as it was the original time it happened. So that was some of the things that were harder to sort of write and to share. Mm-hmm. And just really opening yourself up to criticism and to, I got some, when I first shared my story through an article, I got some really mean replies. So mm-hmm. really opening yourself up to that possible criticism and people being mean. But the amazing thing is I really have gotten so much support mm-hmm. that it's made all of that really worth it.
Mm-hmm. How, what has been the reaction of the people closest to you from you sharing your experiences?
So I'm really lucky. My parents have been supportive of me in just about every single decision I've made, from moving to Israel to sharing this story. And so I've been really lucky that in that way that they are so proud of me for turning this into something positive. And it's as much their story as mine. I just share a bit more of my private information, but some of the things that they went through are also very sort of private and intimate and that you wouldn't necessarily share, but they let me do it, and they were the first sort of reviewers mm-hmm. and editors of it. So I think other people might have been scared to do that or asked to be taken out, and they never were. They wanted to come along with me for this ride of mm-hmm. fighting for social justice. So I'm mm-hmm. really lucky to have family like that.
So what are you doing now to help with these social justice issues as it pertains to the acceptance of all Jews, regardless of how they affiliate within the spectrum of Judaism, if you will?
So right now, at this very moment, and like this past year, I feel like the best way that I can somehow make changes by sharing my story. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of the times when we hear about religious coercion or the lack of Jewish pluralism in Israel, we hear it more of statistics. And I think putting a face on it and showing that how it really impacts people's lives and that they're not just numbers is really important. So by sharing my story either in events or by sharing it in articles or by sharing it in my book, that's really where I've put all my effort in, is to try to show that this is people's lives that are being changed.
Mm-hmm. What has been the biggest or what change, really, if any, have you seen in the near decade that you've been identifying as a dual American-Israeli citizen?
So the first time that I shared my story was about 7 years ago. And I remember it was in an Israeli newspaper. And the reason that they wanted to print my not the only reason, but one of the major reasons behind this campaign of this coverage was there was supposed to be this new law that the rabbinate had that was going to make conversion more difficult. They were trying to sort of make almost more of they said it was going to be easier, but it made it actually worse. And so I was part of that campaign by sharing my story for the very first time. And in the end, there was a lot of outrage not at me after the story, but like it really put a face on this issue. It wasn't just a random issue. It was, here's a person that's been suffering from it. And in the end, the law wasn't passed. So I hope that my story had some impact on making that change. That would have been a change for the worse. And I think also awareness has changed. I think people are more knowledgeable to what the laws are. I think a lot of Israelis didn't know. I think a lot of Jewish Americans may not have known. I would actually say that I think Jewish Americans are actually more aware because most of these laws tend to affect them more than a lot of the Israeli-born Israelis. I remember I was the one that told my then boyfriend that there were two definitions for a Jew in Israel. He had no idea. And oftentimes we're the ones that know more about sort of the country's laws and how the religious coercion, whether it's at the kotel or whether it's at the rabbinut or whether it's, in all these different areas, how it really does impact our lives.
So you talk about in your book how you are the daughter of a Reform convert, and I was just sharing with you that I recently completed my own conversion.
Oh, Mazal Tov.
Thank you. And so what advice do you have for individuals who are finding a draw to this faith, to this community, who also have a desire to find life in Israel? And what would you share with them?
So I haven't undergone the conversion process, so I think that the two pieces of advice that I would give is one, find a stream of conversion that you relate to that aligns with your value systems. And luckily, since Jews never agree, we have lots of different streams of Judaism. And the second would be is really be knowledgeable to understand the implications of your conversion and what it means around the world. So if you're not converted by an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, the likelihood is, or it's not just a likelihood, it's a fact, unfortunately, that you're not going to be considered fully Jewish by the rabbinut in Israel, which has a number of different implications, such as not being able to be married in Israel, not being able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. And if you're not okay with that, then you need to make a decision if you want to go to a different stream of Judaism, or if you want to stay with the stream of Judaism and join my fight with me to try to make social change.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely check out a copy of Chutzpah and High Heels. If you weren't able to join us at one of our lectures here in the Phoenix Scottsdale area, you can hear a recording of Jessica's discussion on our podcast, which is on our Learning Library at the valleybeitmidrash.org website. Jessica, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Safe travels back to Israel.
Thank